Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi there, Belma. Are we waiting for some extra people to get in, or just let me know when we want to get started?
Yes, if you would like to start, that would be great, Mark. I'm going to be adding people as they come in.
Okay, perfect. Give
Yes.
me 1 second to share my screen. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Transfer and Articulation Community of Practice Forum. Today, we actually have a guest speaker from Stellic, but our topic today is around different third-party transfer tools that different entities or institutions would use. So we're going to start out a little bit with our guest speaker, and then we're going to kind of turn it over to a few things you want to consider when you're looking at third-party transfer tools to assist your institution, and then have kind of an open question where different users of different tool types can talk about things, or we'll just do an open chat and questions. Just as a reminder about the Acro Transfer and Articulation Community of Practice forums, these forums are a service that the Acro Transfer and Articulation Committee provides to our association. So the committee every other month finds a topic that is sourced from our members to talk about and bring people together kind of as a phone a friend resource, or just kind of a group to talk, as it were, transfer credit, shop, and articulation topics. So we're really glad you're here. These webinars are recorded also for future reference, or if you want to look back on it at different points in time. So all of our different webinars in this area can be found on the Acro website. And so that's a really great resource, especially if you have different team members that aren't able to attend during the time frame that we schedule these every other month, or if you want to just look back on some of the content that we reviewed at different times. So with that being said, I'm actually going to turn it over just for a second to Josie to introduce our guest speaker from Stellic, and then we'll let them take it away and talk about what their services that they provide. And just as kind of a little frame of reference, there's many different tools and providers that are out there that provide third party transfer credit services, or different type of practices. This is just one that is out there, but it is one that membership has talked about and was at our ACO annual meeting. And so we're happy for them just to join for a few minutes and talk about that, to also help kick off a discussion later on things to consider about different tools, or the different ways that people may be approaching the kind of wild and diverse world of transfer credit. So with that said, Josie, I'll give you a few minutes to introduce our speaker.
Sure. I'll be brief. We have here with us today Joe from Stellic. Like Mark said, there's tons of third-party tools out there. We invited Stellic to join us because they're kind of new. I personally had heard about them from another friend in transfer, and so just thought it would be a really cool opportunity to invite a provider to the conversation, and because they're new, so maybe not a ton of us have heard about them yet. And so there's a lot so we're excited to just kind of learn from them about what they're doing and what they offer, because as Mark said, there's tons of tools out there. Each of them kind of offer different things. Some of them work better with some SISs over others, or they perform very specific functions. So we just wanted to bring someone new to the party and learn from them, and offer an opportunity for anyone else to learn too. So Joe, I'll let you go from there.
Awesome, Josie. Thank you for the introduction, and also, thank you so much to Acro for inviting us here today and allowing us to share our little slice of the transfer world, and how we're thinking about different ways to solve for transfer for prospective students, for administrators, and so on. I was going to walk through sort of a slide presentation today. As Josie and Mark mentioned, there's a variety of different solutions out there on how to tackle the transfer solution, or the transfer problem. We're taking a very I guess you could say student-centric approach or lens to that, with the goal of improving administrator effectiveness and efficiency by providing a great experience for students. So the whole idea is, when students win, administrators win, and vice versa. So should be about 75 slides if y'all want to bear with me. I'm just kidding. We got about 20, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I was operating under the assumption that there would be other folks from other organizations presenting today. So if we have time for Q&A, we're happy to stick around for that. Or if it's okay with you all, I'd love to stick around and just be a fly on the wall for the rest of your transfer conversation. But you also feel free to kick me out if you don't want me around. So
Joe,
You're
stick
welcome
around
here.
and it'll be great to have you.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Appreciate that, Mark. Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and share my screen and see if this works. All right. You should see improving. Nope, you won't see anything because I haven't hit share yet. All right. Improving the prospective and transfer student experience. So, are folks seeing that on their end? Thumbs up. All right, awesome. So just a little background on who I am. There's actually a lot of friends on this meeting that I see, and folks that I've known for a long time. I've never actually worked at a college or university, but I have worked with colleges and universities essentially my whole life, actually. Starting off in commencement, my family had an event photography business. We did commencement ceremonies regionally across the Midwest, but also nationally, from University of Alaska Fairbanks down to institutions in Florida. So there are actually some registrars that I've probably known for about 25 or 30 years now at this point, but specifically focused on working in higher education around student success, curriculum lifecycle, analytics, resource scheduling, and as I mentioned, commencement. So I love Acro. I love being here. So again, thank you all so much for the invite. A little bit about Stellic. So one thing that I love, and one thing that really attracted me to to becoming a part of Stellic, is this almost unapologetic student-centric nature to solving administrative challenges. And what I mean by that is, we were founded by students at Carnegie Mellon University, and these were first-generation students who had no idea what the heck a degree audit was. That those words meant nothing to them. Transfer courses, again, didn't mean anything to them. Like, there was this language gap and barrier between what they wish they would have known and what they actually knew. And working with their advisors, working with the registrar, very talented computer science majors, they decided to create a system for themselves, really to focus on degree progress. So, Stellic is really known for things like audit planning, scheduling, registration. We do support advisors with tools like appointment scheduling and notes and case management, all those things. But the real goal is to provide transparency and clarity for students around their journey, right? So students should be able to self-service and answer these questions on their own. What does this course count for? How am I tracking towards my requirements? So on and so forth. We take a meet you where you are approach. So while it is one platform with all of those different elements, as you can see up here on the screen, we do have the ability to sort of turn these on and turn these off. So the benefit being, instead of like a degree plan that's integrated with an audit, the audit and degree planner are so aware of each other that they're practically intertwined. But when it comes to institutions that have different student success technologies and they're happy with those, absolutely don't have to use ours. So we really are good at sort of meeting institutions where they are today. The focus for today's session is going to be on the transfer and prospective areas that Stellic is moving into. For the first 4 or 5 years of our existence as a company, we really focused on solving this problem of degree management from the lens of better planning tools, a modern usable audit for students, workflow reporting, and those types of things. So really excited to share with you all today how we're thinking about transfer and how we're thinking about making this easier for students and administrators. Just a little kind of a segment of who we're all working with today. So a variety of institutions. I know Josie mentioned that some products seem to work better with other SISs rather than others. We're very SIS agnostic. we're just about every system agnostic. Being a modern, recently developed piece of software, the ability to integrate with multiple systems has been a huge benefit. One thing we're really proud of is really student adoption. So for our partners that are live and using the platform, we're seeing about 90% or greater student adoption, which is really almost unheard of with student-facing technology. And that's where I think some of the great data will come from. But let's talk transfer. So when we started to think about, being a sort of one-stop shop for a student and their degree management journey, where we came in for the student was, really after they'd matriculated, as they were either evaluating different programs, different paths, and really after articulation had already happened. So, Stellic would consume the output of an articulation process where students could see, what they received for transfer credit and then apply that towards whatever program of study they were interested in. But one thing we noticed, as we're doing this work is that, there's still this underserved need of in that transfer and prospective student space. If a student wants to understand what would their journey look like on campus, what courses will transfer for them, it's not a very easy question for them to answer today. It requires multiple systems. It requires, knowing where to navigate to. And really our goal, again, is to provide, transparency and clarity so that students can make informed decisions. And this kind of North Star of ours, we've seen more and more interest from institutions over the past few years, especially in providing tools like that for their students. The other thing that we were thinking of is, how can we further leverage what we're already delivering? So since audit and planning are at the core of what Stellic does, we have robust pathways for students, equivalencies for degree audit. It's already possible for students to see the outcome of their articulated courses and how those apply towards their progress and journey. But how can we extend that further? And there were a few thoughts that kind of came to mind. One, we want to always maintain the student-centered approach. So, this is what we've done with our, the core of our work today is really putting students at the center of the experience. And we want to deliver something like that with prospective and transfer students as well. So essentially transforming, transfer from a, say, back office or back-end administrative tool to a student-centered experience with things like real-time responses, catering to a variety of students, whether you're already matriculated on campus, considering the impact of a transfer course, or maybe taking a course, over the summer at another institution, or if you're, truly a prospective student, whether transferring from institution to institution, or even high school. I don't think any student comes to college or university today with nothing at this point. Whether it's dual credit, dual enrollment in high school, AP scores. Almost every student is a transfer student this day, if you look at it through that lens. So how can we help those students also evaluate what their path to degree might look like? At the same time, we want to provide a similar set of benefits for administrators. So, transfer rule management can be complex, time-consuming, error-prone. If we can reduce this through different workflows, automation, student self-service in some areas, how can we make life easier for administrators who are always being asked to do more with less? We're constantly hearing from folks that, like, wouldn't it be great if admissions could provide a prospective student with a plan that takes into account all of their articulated courses and the 7 different programs they're considering? That's just not possible. I mean, some of you might have the staff to do that, but I don't think most people would. And to that end, though, there's this this care factor. We want to maintain a human element, so helping students get connected to admissions and the support they need through all of this. And we're going to do this by essentially extending our focus on one platform. So as I mentioned earlier, Stellic is really just one big platform that things can be turned on and off of. And when you have all of this functionality tightly interwoven to one thing, the ability to extend, say, audit and planning for a prospective student becomes extremely powerful. And just to the, just kind of put a fine point on that is, as we're thinking about, becoming extending our focus on being an end-to-end degree management platform, Part of that is being very clear about what we're not going to do. We're not interested in room and resource management, for example. We're not going to become a catalog management system, right? We really want to become this end-to-end, journey management experience for our students, faculty, staff, advisors, registrars, et cetera. So this really fits into kind of our guiding principles on what we're going to deliver. All right, last thing, and then I was under the impression that there might be other folks, presenting today. So like I said, about 20 minutes or so, we'll take a look at some slides. I wasn't going to do a full demonstration just because of time constraints. But what we're going to look today is sort of how Stellic is rolling all of this out. So already provided to some of our partners today is what we call prospective student pathways. So this allows for students to look at their degree requirements and prerequisites, let them create a plan, essentially the same way that an enrolled student would. Kind of taking that a step further is supporting transfer on the unofficial level for a prospective student. So for a student to be able to upload an unofficial transcript, return articulated courses for them, and then apply those to really any program that they're considering at your institution. So they can actually take a look at how their credits would apply in a program specific fashion, right? Because we know that maybe Math 101 is fine for a business major, but for engineering students, it's not going to fly. So that part of transfer has always been very tricky because you might get a course articulated and it might count for credits, but does it actually count towards the program that you have in mind? And that's a very important nuance. And then finally, official transfer where administrators can fully manage the rules, override decisions, within the platform, sort of this override capability, edit rules within the system, or import your articulation rules from an external system if that's where you desire managing those. So, sound good so far? Let's see, any questions in the chat? Hallelujah. All right. Oh, thanks for the shout out, Bobby. Awesome. Sorry, I'm not good at monitoring chat with multiple monitors and all this thing going. Okay, here we go. All right. So introduction to perspective and transfer student at Stellic. So we'll walk through the platform a little bit. What we're going to see are screenshots today from one of our development partners, the University of Newcastle in Australia. A little context, undergrad, grad, and doctoral degrees, 43,000 students. They've been extremely innovative in partnering with us to enhance and provide this support for their students. Let's see, their SIS is PeopleSoft for those who are interested. Okay. So we're going to start with a look of equivalencies. This is what it would look like in Stellic, and we're starting here because just to sort of kind of set a base level of the system. So what we're looking at is transfer rule management, where we can see some equivalency rules that we're going to work with today as a student, and then again as an administrator. This is the part of the platform where administrators with permission, so not everybody can do this, of course, just always want to caveat that. Would be able to go in and either edit different rules for students broadly or discretely. These, like I said earlier, these can be imported from another system, such as your SIS or a legacy system. You can see some of these are, mapped one-to-one, one-to-many. There's effective dates for the rules and so on. On the next slide, we're going to take.
Are you sharing screen? We don't see it.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry, what?
We're not seeing the slide.
You're not?
Nope.
Did you see
I
it?
can
see it.
Oh,
I'm seeing
why
it.
am I not seeing it?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
Okay, it's me then. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you said something. Always speak up if you think there's a problem. But for the rest of us, are we good? Okay, awesome. I'll keep trucking. I don't want to take up your whole meeting. So where was I? Okay, so yeah. So the next slide, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper on one of these rules. We'll look at Math 1110 in more detail. So this will be, if you click on any of those courses, any of those rules, it will expand it, explain the source institution, home institution, summary, effective dating at a deeper level. But essentially, the key takeaway here is that, if a student takes Calc 101 and Calc 102 at Foothill College at the University of Newcastle, they will get credit for Math 1110. You all understand this. This is pretty basic stuff. But what does that actually look like then for the student? So let's take a look through a prospective student experience and how they would interact with those equivalency rules. So imagine you're a prospective student and you're browsing for a potential undergrad program, you're interested in math. So today you can go to the University of Newcastle's website and click on Prospective Student Planner. This is all publicly available. And it'll bring you to the page as an unenrolled student. And essentially you can see their math degree program, as well as different pathways, which are, course sequences. Some folks call them degree plans, some call them like a degree map. Essentially it's a request, like a recommended sequence of courses. In Stellic, we call a pathway that sort of degree sequence template. And then once it's assigned to a student, it becomes their plan. And when it's assigned to the student, that's when we look through all of their course history. So if the plan needs to be updated based on that student's unique circumstances. But let's say we're interested in that third pathway, and that is single major calculus in a Bachelor of Mathematics. It takes you to the full path right here. So now the student can start understanding the requirements, looking at the gen eds, electives. They can move courses around. You can see the audit is on the right. So those are like the full rules for this program. In Stellic, we use this like green, red, yellow sort of nomenclature. So green is complete, yellow is planned, and red means neither complete nor planned. So trying to let students know here in this case that they are fully planned out for this Bachelor of Mathematics program. And you can start playing around. But if you look up at the top, there's this Explore Transfer Credits option. And, again, the student can drag and drop courses around. When they go to that Explore Transfer Credit option, they can now see how they can shorten their timeline to completion for this program. So when you click on it, it walks you through a wizard. Like I have AP credits or IB credits or post-secondary credits, or you can choose credit, from an institution examination. So we'll go ahead and add an institution. And this brings to where the student can either upload transfer credits, submit a unofficial transcript, or go through a process of just adding courses, kind of ad hoc on an ad hoc basis. So if they do upload, using, OCR AI to do a pass, they can then review that. Think of that import process as essentially pre-filling the form. So the student does have the right to edit if, OCR didn't get it done perfectly, or if they want to add something, and then they can go ahead and submit that. And then from there, it will show them the results. So you can see again, there's that 2-to-1 mapping from Calc 101 and 102 to Math 1110. We can actually see that, one of these courses did not map to anything. So we did not have any existing articulation rules for this Math 104 topics course. Now, when the student, applies and submits an official transcript, then at that point, administrators can take over and, work to determine what to do with that course, which we will see here in just a little bit. But the nice thing is the student can see how their articulation applies to this program, and they've yet to apply to this institution. So essentially, I can see my articulation results, how my credits would apply to progress. And these results would apply to all of my plans. So in this case, the student has, one plan looking at a Bachelor of Mathematics. Maybe they're interested in exploring a few other different programs. They can switch around, essentially doing a what if, again, as a prospective student. So they haven't matriculated, but they can play what if games with your programs, with their potential transfer credits to see what that looks like. There are a few questions in the chat here. I'll take a pause here. Okay. Oh, great. Danae can see it. Will this program calculate a transfer GPA? So that depends. Some of our partners on Stellic will either have GPAs calculated by the SIS and read that in. We can also calculate GPAs in different parts of a program or for the entire program if you want GPAs calculated within our platform. So we can do GPA calculations. That said, well, it would be a part of configuration to understand how to treat courses that transfer as just credits, if those get, how those bake into GPA calculations. But can you search for transfer courses based on what you need credit for? Instead of Math 101 from Ivy Tech, what could So that would be a different view for like a matriculated student typically, where it, depending if the institution wants to expose their articulation rules to matriculated students, you can actually shop those essentially, which is an option. Wendolyn, is anyone in admissions or advising notified of the, yes, absolutely. So I just snagged a few screenshots here for brevity, but when students come and walk through this process, you can allow them to start as a guest, or they can use social media sign-ins like Google or Apple, or I don't know if we're doing Facebook yet or not. So that's an option, so they can actually save their work and come back to it. And then at any point during this process, you can have like a share my information or request contact, or it can, you know, pre-populate or push information into another system. So just one of our key values is Stellic is not a black box. It is your data. We make it easy for you to get access to it. So that's a big part of the work we do. Now, student contact information, again, that would be an opt-in process. You know, so if a student feels comfortable sharing that and you request it, they can go through that. Aaron, I think that answered your question. And then Danae, will it save their what ifs? It will if they want to. So I'm not sure if you can see on the screen this, you know, by this math program, there's those 3 dots. If a student clicks on those 3 dots, they could see multiple plans that they've created. So they can save plans, or we actually have this kind of wizard tool where if a student says, I'd like to create a new plan, we can walk them through a process of like, why do you want to create a new plan? Are you exploring something else? For matriculated students, that could be something like study abroad. It could be gap year, or, you know, interest in another program. Okay, so this is like I said, my goal today was just to provide a taste and not take up your whole meeting. So this is really what I was prepared to show today on prospective students, a little bit of the administrative experience, and then we can do a little more Q&A if there's interest. But for administrators, this is the sort of the staff review view, if you will. So a bit of context. For enrolled students, Stellic allows you to sort by program, department, status. We always provide different filters when you're looking at information, whether it's courses, programs, plans, etc. So up at the top, you can see the filters for demographics here, status, transfer, prospective students, etc. We've also developed alternative views to make, you know, basically which makes more sense for each student. That's transfer focus, which you can see here. So looking at this set of students, you can easily see which students need attention. So in this case, we'll click inside to view the details for Starla Abbott. So you can see Starla here is a matriculated student. She's entry year 2024, full-time, working on a Bachelor of Mathematics. She's had 4 transfer courses, and one of which requires review. And so for that review process, you can look at her transcript, or you can edit articulations. You can lock articulations for the student. We'll go ahead and look at the editing process. So in this case, we're editing this whole Calc 101 to Math 1110 again. And here we could do like a transfer exception for a particular student. So we're either changing the articulated courses for this student, and this could either create a new rule. This could apply to just this student, or this could apply to all students who need this rule. So there's a few different options, you know, depending on your use cases here. But, you know, moving from left to right, we're going to search for a course that Math 104 would transfer to. On the far right, we can see that we're applying credit for this class, but not giving it a grade. Staff do have the ability, with the appropriate permissions, to override an articulation if it's necessary, add justification, and then again, just save it on a one-off basis, or save it as the starting point for a new rule. All right, let me see here. And that is what I had prepared for you all today. So hopefully that was interesting and gives you a taste of really just how we're thinking about you know, transfer and articulation through the lens of either enrolled students, prospective students, and then also to make life a little bit easier for the folks that do the hard work. So thank you all so much. I had a slide for Q&A, but I didn't want to monopolize your time, so I took the slide for Q&A out. But you know, Mark, Josie, if you want me to stick around and do a little Q&A, I'd be happy to. We also have folks from our product management team. If you really want to get in the weeds, I don't know if we want to completely hijack your meeting though, but I do have an email address up here on the screen for folks who are interested in learning more. We'd be happy to have a conversation. And thanks so much for inviting me to your meeting.
Thanks so much, Joe. And so, yes, please stick around. I'm going to actually put up a different slide. We will want you to have you here for some Q&A, but I want to talk about a few things before we get into that. As Joe kind of mentioned and Josie has alluded to, we had planned on having a few other people here, but schedules didn't work out, and there was, you know, just schedule conflicts that happen, sometimes even the day of. So Joe and Stellic, I guess, benefit from them being the only presenter today. So we'll be glad to have you for the Q&A and ask through that. But the thought process was to kind of talk about the different third-party tools that were out there and the philosophy that different schools or institutions have related to our third-party tools. And so when you're looking at them, there's a few considerations that you should have when you're trying to decide which way to go, whether it's even buy versus build or which provider may be right for you. And so as you build either questions internally, or even if you're building something more formal like a request for information or a request for a proposal, these are some of the topics that you should think of. And I'll go through them briefly, but we can also have a deeper discussion about that in the Q&A. When you're looking at third-party tools, and this is actually not a coincidence, that's the number one item that I have listed here, is data. Who has the ownership of the data in regards to your transfer decisions and where it's going, and the agility of that data to change? Because for all of us that are on this call that work in the transfer credit offices, first of all, transfer credit data is ever evolving. Like once you have a decision done, something else is coming around, typically, unless it's a high feeder institution. And with the advanced mobility of students and their need to potentially go to multiple institutions over time, you want to be able to have data that can change, or if new requirements or you change a different layer on how you make your transfer credit decisions exist. But tied to that is, again, ownership. You have to ask questions about, do you have access to all of the decisions? How can you get to those decisions? What happens if a partnership ends? What happens to all the decisions we had in the past? And those are important questions because they aren't things that we had thought about maybe 10, 15 years ago when you partnered with another group. Who gets the data? Where does it go? All of those things. But they become the backbone for anything you want to do in the future, especially whether it's automation or even trying to run custom AI scripts over the top of decisions. I'm seeing schools use certain partnerships with, whether it's OpenAI or Microsoft with Copilot, saying, here's all of my transfer information. Let's have students do a natural language lookup of, does my English composition course equate to a different English composition course at the institution? I think that's a quick and easy way to get some things going, and they're very interesting. But you know, I think there's more nuance to that when you're using AI and doing it for transfer credit. But you can't do any of this without data. So just know where that is, where it goes, and how it's going to be used as well. The other thing to think about when you're looking at third-party tools is the integrations that the tool already has and what partners that already exist with the provider you're partnering with. And that's because let's assume that all of their schools already in a network or high feeder institutions for you. That may help make the decision easier for you because they may already have data on decisions that the other institution has made that you could reverse engineer about transfer, equivalencies or, transfer cycles on that. The other thing is understanding not only the partners from an institution basis, but also from a technology basis. Are they using Amazon Web Services? Are they using different backend architectures that are similar to other architecture that your institution is building some of your custom jobs off of? Or if it's even your student website, what type of tools or what kind of backend items are running? Especially, are you an Adobe shop, or are you using Next.js to build your websites? And I know that may sound very, very in the weeds technology, but when you're talking about building UI, UX on the backend data that you have as an institution to surface it up to students, understanding how that all works and relates is even on the front end student experience is really important. So asking those questions are essential. Another area to think about is the workflow capabilities and design rigidity. And all I would have to say if you walk away from that kind of set of words is the idea of what is actually custom builds or what are configurable. And the reality is that there's a lot of tools that will say, oh, we can all do that. Oh, we can make that happen, et cetera, when you're talking in those initial forms. But is it going to require custom code, or is it configurable on the user end, i.e. your end or your shop's end? And those are two very different things. Custom code building versus having configurable tools that you as an administrator can change at your fingertips. And you want to understand how rigid those designs are or how flexible they are. Because yes, and I'll use Stellic because they're here in a sense, but any partner that are out there would say, yeah, we could probably do whatever you want, and it's true. But do you build it, or is it configurable at that time? And asking those questions, getting that level deeper, will help you get the right tool that you need. The other area that I want to focus on is also ensure that you're looking at clarity on nomenclature. And I work, and I think several of you may know this, but my main job is an academic as the vice provost of strategy for my institution. And part of that is looking at different contracts, looking at different partners and different vendors. But when you have different nomenclature, when you're saying a shared understanding of your institution versus another shared understanding versus your vendor partner, wildly different outcomes can happen, especially if you're having someone who is in the administrative side, not on the registrar, admissions, or transfer office side, asking questions. And so I'll give you a very easy example that most of you will understand, which is a tool or a provider would say to you, yeah, we can tell you all the credits that are going to be accepted, and we have 1 million acceptance decisions for these entity, or 2 million, or whatever the number is. We can tell you how many credits are accepted at your institution. And that may be great, but someone may hear that as those are also the credits that are exactly going to fit towards a degree requirement on a specific student's program and applied towards degree requirements. And I have seen that before where we are asked on the transfer side about investigating something because, oh, it's going to do all this work that is so hard to figure out where requirements go and are applied. And the reality is the common out language was about acceptance, which is, will it just transfer over on my macro level order transfer policies? So make sure that you have shared nomenclature on that. Because certain institutions use those, or certain vendors will use those words interchangeably, and they may be wildly different depending on what you want to see. And a lot of schools are going to what Joe shared, which is a really great thing, on where the credits are actually going to be applied to do what if scenarios. Like that's the next level below. It's not just, does it come over and transfer? It's where are they applied? And then the last thing is, what are your institutional goals? And I say this because certain providers are looking more at what happens on traditional kind of institution to institution transfer credit, and others are playing more in a space of credit for prior learning or some other activities that may be not normally accepted at most institutions. And depending on your goals, or depending on who you are or what you want to do, you may want to dabble with someone else that is doing CPL, which may not fit have all the data, or maybe a different kind of layer of things looking at, because that's your institutional goal. Where some schools will go with a product that would be more just institution to institution transfer, because they're not going to play in that space, and that may fit the outcomes and also increase speed to implementation, which is a really important thing as you look at transfer credit and what you're doing as far as an institution. So each school will have a different choice on what they want to do and what tool providers they want to have. There's not a one size fits all, I think, approach just yet. And that's why it's great having conversations with people like Joe from Stellic and other entities when you have the opportunity. But I think what was shared today is really, really interesting and solves a lot for a lot of our institutions that may be on this call. So with that in mind, I don't want to take up much more space, and I'll open it up for Q&A for either Joe or anyone else on the Transfer and Articulation Committee to provide answers to. So if people want to put their questions in the chat, we can kind of moderate through that. Or if someone wants to come off mute, we can also try to do that way. Either way is fine. So I will stop talking and see what questions we have.
While we wait for a question, I'm just going to give a huge +1 to Mark on there's a huge difference between can you and how do you when you're trying to investigate just how things work. And it's unfortunate sometimes that one is easier to answer than the other, but always ask how, and demand honesty on how that's working.
If I may share my question, my name is Nadia Shadat, and I work at the University of Missouri, which I know that we are partnering with STELIC, and it is in the workouts right now. Very excited for the process. I actually worked on an internal process, homegrown kind of transfer articulation kind of unofficial evaluation, utilizing the PeopleSoft kind of tools, and also Slate as a way to save and store our information. I am a little bit interested in knowing for prospective students, because this is what my office actually works for, the transfer center. We meet with students on a regular basis that they would like to know how their courses fits. So one of the steps was to load their transcripts as prospective students. The question was, do students need to have an SSO or login information? And if I missed that, I'm sorry, but if that's the case, then it doesn't serve the students who don't want to start an application. They don't want to pay application fee, and they want to know how their courses actually fits. So if I missed that part, my apologies, but could you please expand on that?
Yeah, no worries. No, there's no need to have an institution, SSO or ID or email address. Our design is built for either, it's up to the institution. It can be guest, the student can just sign in as a guest and not provide any sort of information. Alternatively, there's social media logins that can be utilized if you want to allow for creating an account, saving an account. Or there's the old fashioned, create enter your email address and create a password. The opt-in, for contact information is again also optional to the institution, but highly encouraged, because this could be a great source of lead generation, as well as an opportunity to have an informed conversation with a prospective student. But SSO is not necessary for the prospective student tool.
That is great. So in that case, would STELIC be, as an open source, have the ability to connect with Slate to create inquiries for us so we can communicate with these students in the future?
Craig, do you mind if I pass that one to you?
Sure. Hi. So I heard the question right. You're asking about integrating with Slate. So it's on our plan to integrate with Slate anyway, because as we move to more of the official processing, that's where, that's one of the common tools we come across where the documents would tend to be. So we haven't done that yet, but it is on our roadmap to integrate with the leading admission tools or tools like OnBase, wherever the documents tend to be. We also have a plan, we haven't implemented it yet, to, if a CRM system has an API we could work with, we could make API calls to push things to it as they occur.
That is actually awesome. And is there like a type of document that would be required for the student to submit their transcripts, a PDF, a Word? Sometimes they have a picture. Is Slate compatible with all different kinds of documents? I'm sorry, STELIC.
So it's basically an OCR analysis. So we've had good luck with both PDF and with like a JPEG type analysis. I don't believe I've honestly tried a Word doc. I don't think I've ever seen a student come to me in our samples that we've collected with a Word doc. But commonly PDFs, or if it was already on their piece of paper they had, if they take an image with their phone, then we're usually looking at a JPEG.
Thank you.
Joe, do you have any examples of customizations you've done with Stellic, or have you done any customizations for any institutions yet?
So really our goal around customization is to really think about configuration rather than customization. So we, as a SaaS product, our desire is to take most of the commonly requested customizations, because we have, as a newer company, when a new idea comes in, that gets considered and then might start its life as a customization, with the intention of always being, standardized and then released to the broader code base. Again, we're a little bit different than a lot of legacy systems in higher ed. Most of our upgrades roll out every 2 weeks. There's no installation of those on your end. It just seamlessly kind of happens. We're a rolling release dev shop. So as new features, maintenance, patches, et cetera, happen, those are just automatically applied. So not that customization is a dirty word, but it is more our desire to create something that can be highly configurable. Things can be turned on, turned off, applied if appropriate. Most of those, I mean, with regard to the platform today, a lot of the what started as customizations but have turned into sort of mainstream products, we are now doing, we have like a student survey tool to help with financial aid compliance. We have a like faculty survey kind of thing where you can kind of take attendance, say 2 weeks in, or something of that nature. Registration, different registration approaches. One of our partners, students bid on registration. So where, it's like a priority registration. So you kind of rank the courses that you want the most, and then we run a custom process to, turn registration from a free-for-all into more of a prioritization project, and that can be productized and then, released to other partners. So again, whenever we do get approached with new ideas, those get vetted against existing partners, compared to different items on our roadmap. And then ultimately, we like to deploy things through what's called a feature flag. So something that can easily be turned on or off for future use. That's actually how we started doing appointment scheduling for advisors and students. It started off as like, hey, it'd be really cool since students are in this thing, getting ready for registration. They're looking at their progress, they're looking at their plan, they're preparing to schedule. Like, why can't they just make an appointment with their advisor at this point? Like, it sounds like a really great idea. So, and that kind of spawned a whole bunch of new functionality as kind of from a one-off to almost a student success tool that we might consider for like advising workflows. But good question, Josie.
And speaking of, sorry, I have one more. You mentioned workflow. Can you give some examples that are of workflow options that are available in Stellic?
Yeah. So grad clearance is a really popular one. And we're doing some really cool enhancements to that today to make grad clearance a really powerful, efficient workflow. Some of our partners are doing things like change of major requests, requests for taking a course, for where a course might require instructor permission. Exceptions are a workflow within the tool. So like substitutions, waivers, modifying constraints. So, if an advisor needs to make an adjustment for a student in their requirements, they can have the power to do that. And depending on their permissions and everything, that can either go through an approval process. But yeah, there is a kind of a workflow building tool that's in the platform. So there, for institutions that don't already use an existing workflow tool, there's some capabilities there to support that. But oftentimes the workflows that we're seeing in the platform are really focused around degree management. So it could be like a change of major, add a minor, different course related requests, and then like exceptions in those types of workflows.
Are there any plans with your transfer product to include about course evaluation workflow?
You want me to grab it, Joe?
Greg, you can jump in on here. Yeah, I'm gonna call in product for that one because I don't know, and I don't think so.
Actually, again, it is very much on our roadmap. We're already talking to some partners. Sarah, I see you. So workflow, it would be a natural thing for us to add to it. And the process for evaluating exceptions to transfer processing or new rules is on some level very similar to the audit exception type of idea. So it takes our same custom workflow builder, so you can design the steps, how many steps, who gets to approve at each stage, what details do you want to collect at each stage along the way. But we will have the additional hooks so that that can be tapped into the edit accept the equivalency rule editing process. When it's first released, it would be a manual workflow that you would design outside of Stellic, but it will become a workflow inside Stellic.
Thank you.
Joe, you referenced the I think Cambridge University as a development partner, and the last time I talked to somebody, this was still like very new on the block. So I don't know, when is this going to be implemented in the product? Is it already implemented? Like, where do you stand in this cycle?
Yeah, so different pieces of what I've shown today are live. So the prospective student piece minus the sort of transfer articulation piece is being used at Newcastle today. So that was kind of our phase one. Phase two is being able to do the unofficial transfer. That testing with partners today is going well. We're anticipating releasing that this summer to our early adopters. And then the last phase is the ability. So like right now, we can import articulation rules from other systems. So like your SIS or I imagine one of the companies that might have been showing up today to join us in this session, like we can pull in their rules, for example. And then, but currently those would need managed outside of Stellic. But the goal is really this fall to release the editing environment within the platform. So most of what you saw today by the end of the summer should be at least in the hands of our early adopters for testing and enhancement with some of the additional functionality being released later this year.
Thank you.
Of course.
It was actually Newcastle, not Cambridge. So if you like, feel free to make your way to the University of Newcastle website, wind your way onto a degree detail page, and you'll see in that page the access to the Stellic Planner.
Good questions.
What more questions about the field names? I mean, PeopleSoft has weird field names. And I was
That's an
wondering,
understatement.
yeah. So I was wondering if that is something that can be fixed within Stellic. So it's student facing. So they really don't know the terms that we use behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's actually not uncommon. Typically, part of our integration strategy involves data transformation. Oftentimes, that's either happening on your end before the data makes it to us, or it happens on our end. So, because of and to kind of further compound what you're describing, no two institutions typically have set up PeopleSoft the same way. So there's almost always a little bit of uniqueness to the integration approach where data may live in an unexpected table or tables have been renamed. And that's a part of our process during like a discovery phase with our partners is to understand. We have developed actually it's pretty cool. So like we'll import registration holds or financial aid holds and do a little bit of transformation as when we get those messages, we can create kind of a friendly name for that so that it's not barking at the student in PeopleSoft or Banner speak, but translating that into a more user-friendly message. So that's not uncommon for us to do that data transformation. But again, it does require a lot of discovery to understand, deeply what the issue is and then how to address it.
All
Will
right.
I'm sorry, will new courses that gets evaluated through our manual process, if it's fed into SIS, does that require any work on your side to add this new equivalency to Stellic, or does it automatically pull the new information?
So if I understand your question, so so today obviously you're managing your articulation rules outside of Stellic. And
Right.
so the way Stellic, works for you all at Mizzou without any of these, transfer tools, we would consume the outcome of that articulation without any additional effort on your behalf. So as it would be today, students would go through, that process would happen as it normally plays out, and we would simply, read in the outcome of that as it exists today.
Mm.
In the future, if you were to say could still have Stellic be the articulation engine and run things through our set of rules, right now we would have to import your rules, the newest ones, in order to have that information. In the future, what we're mentioning, kind of late summer, maybe fall, that's where the timeline is for the ability to then edit those rules within our platform. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Joe, that sparks another question. So you were talking about importing rules. So if there are rules that exist in another degree audit software, can we take those rules, import those rules into Stellic, and then can Stellic talk to PeopleSoft with those imported rules?
So the last piece I would need to verify, but you're at University of Utah. So I know the degree audit system that you're talking about, and the answer is yes. We've done that before with that particular one, and can import those in. And then updating PeopleSoft with the outcome is, I don't think we've built that piece yet, but it is something that we have to do in order to support that. We've developed other integrations back to PeopleSoft, so it's really just pushing data into a different place.
Can I clarify, were you looking to push back the individual student articulation results, or were you looking to let people essentially edit the rules in Stellic and then send back rules?
I'm really looking to get my rules into PeopleSoft, and so I was looking at basically using this as a potential laundering tool to get it out of my existing degree audit into Stellic, then back into PeopleSoft to then feed them forward.
So I think the challenge there is,
Got it.
although we can certainly understand, like if, I've seen UAchieve, I've seen PeopleSoft, exports of rules, but there's different models of what a rule looks like. And I'm not very comfortable committing to any back and forth at the rule level. In fact, it's really Stellic's goal to become your new source of truth for the rules. So sending back student articulation results, absolutely, to the SIS. That's where they need to go. But we didn't envision, at least yet, I'm happy to learn from this crowd of some important use cases, but we didn't see ourselves as building a new editing tool for equivalency rules where the source of truth is external.
That makes sense, and I really appreciate your honesty.
And I love the fact that you're talking about like money laundering, but in the context of transfer articulation rules. That is,
I am trying to somehow eliminate the legacy of Rube Goldberg and start in my SIS and feed everything out.
that is hilarious.
But
awesome.
to do that, I'm building more Rube Goldbergs.
I mean, it's the perfect topic for a Friday afternoon transfer chat.
That's right. So friends, we're at time, and I think this was a great discussion. And it also underscored the need for us to have discussions like this and talk about requirements, because these are the type of conversations that will not only help our partners that are on the call and our partners who aren't on this call and watch it later improve their services for us, because we all have some different needs in different institutions, whether it's straight credit evaluations or credit laundering, as Aaron brought up. So from that end, I just want to make a plug for two things. One is right now, registration is open for the Acro Tech and Transfer Conference. If you're interested in attending, it's a virtual conference. We also still are open for sessions for tech sessions and content, and also transfer related and learning mobility related items. So if you have a topic on campus, or you have a speaker that you think would be really useful for all of us to hear in the Acro community, encourage them to submit a session for the conference. Again, it's a virtual conference, and actually session submitters who are accepted get a 25% discount off of the registration fee. But it's a great event that also can reach a lot of members of your campus community, because it is virtual, so you don't have to worry about the travel costs and some of those other associated things. So that is plug one. Plug two is we will have our next Transfer Community of Practice call on June 28th. That topic is going to be best practices in articulation. We already have the Maricopa Community Colleges lined up about their articulation processes, and I believe we'll have maybe some more. So we'll see how that goes. If there's any changes, we'll be posting things on the Acro website and whatnot, but we hope you can join us again in about 2 months from now. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all so much. It was great to meet you all today.
Thank you.